Welcome, everybody, to the Digital Nomad Experts podcast by Beach Commute. Today, we've got Jeff, Marissa, and Diego, and we're really excited to have Diego here today because we are going to be talking about up-and-coming trending digital nomad locations for 2025, but not based on hunches. Diego has data. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've run some surveys even, so you've got some proprietary data on what should be up and coming. So you're not going to find this on Google. You're not going to find this in any blogs. This is like hot off the press stuff. And actually, I have no idea where he's going to list. So I'm very excited. With that, let's just give a second to Diego. How have you been? Because the audience haven't heard from you for a while.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, it's been a year. There's been a lot that's happened in the digital nomad space. So for those of you who have been following the news, there's been one of the big companies, Remote Year, that has taken a step back just at the end of the year, which has really shaken all of us in the space because they've been around for 10 years. So that's a little bit scary for sure. And also just it's weird because on the one hand, you always look at us and say, oh, they must be competing. But at the same time, we always felt like it was more sort of collaborating on creating this movement. And so that's been a very,
For someone new, Diego, listening, can you give a short, quick overview of like Remote Year, Wi-Fi Tribe? What is the space you're talking about for someone who might just be here, just be jumping in with us?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the question. So basically, Wi-Fi Tribe is a community of remote professionals that are co-living all over the world together. And one of the things that we do is we also run these, you can call them retreats, I guess, that are month-long co-living, co-working stays where around 20 people come together and just spend that month together and then explore. And Remote Year was another company that was also started just a little before we did, almost 10 years ago now, and was doing something very similar in terms of organizing trips for remote professionals and taking them around the world. So yeah, that's kind of what the space is when I'm talking about that. And so now it's weird because there's really only 2 companies left in this space. So it's a strange time. But all that said, I have been doing a bit of travel. I've been slowing down this year, so that's been really helpful as well. I'm excited to go skiing at the start of the year. We're going to be, hitting up 2 different places, Chamonix in France and Livigno again, where we were last year in the Italian Alps. And we'll be doing that with a bunch of digital nomads as well. So yeah, lots to look forward to.
Amazing update.
Yep. So with that, let's jump into our list. I think best way to do it, Diego, do you want to share the first thing on your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to give this list a little bit of an introduction so everybody understands where this is all coming from. And so thanks for asking me about, what we do, because I think that's going to be really helpful in explaining all of this. But in short, this list, as you said, Jeff, is actual data. And we are asking our own community, again, of digital nomads, remote professionals. We ask them every quarter, we send out a survey where we ask, where would you want to go a year from today and into the future? And that helps us understand what kind of destinations we should be focusing our attention on so that we don't, miss the mark and we end up putting destinations out there that people really want to go to. So the nice side effect of this, or little bonus benefit, is that I get to hop onto these calls with you and we get to talk about what we're seeing, the real trends being out there in the digital nomad space. Now, also interesting about all of this is that there's going to be a little flavor to it, which is our community. And we have to bear in mind that in our community, there's 600 and something, I think 630 active members in it right now. There's a strong word of mouth in there as well. So if somebody goes to a certain place and is really excited about it, that can skew this a little bit. So as I talk about these trends today, I'm going to make sure to let you know which of these destinations might feel more like something that would be more internal to us, and which of these destinations is something that we've also seen externally in the sort of wider digital nomad space as being relevant. So yeah, that's a little background.
It's a really good point. I feel like all of us within Wi-Fi Tribe are such like little mini
bubbles.
influencers. Yeah. And we're like, in my mind, I'm like, this is the popular destination, but it's just like all of our Wi-Fi Tribe friends are going. And we saw that like you and I were in Namibia around the same time. I feel like everybody was going afterwards, like Sri Lanka, went with some friends. I feel like then it's like suddenly all the people are going. But it's not necessarily like all the digital nomads in the world, but it's our little bubble of it. But I think we have good choices in our little bubble. So I'm excited to look at both.
Cape Town again this year is having another resurgence.
I just
got added to like 2 groups this week, and they're like sending me pictures and trying to sell me on. I'm like, oh my God, Cape Town is the hotspot again. But it's probably a hotspot for like 30 people. So I don't even know in like the broader sense of things, so what the real
Yeah.
trends are. So I mean, in my own little microcosm, it makes sense. So it's good to have Diego balancing this out with real stuff, other than just like going on vibes for you all.
But it's also fun if you're listening as well. I feel like, Jeff, you talk about this a lot just because you have the like SEO internet background. But if you listening just go to Google and say like top digital nomad locations of 2025, you're going to get it totally differently than what Diego is saying. And they're just refurbished lists that people got from other lists that they got from other lists that are usually very inaccurate. Oftentimes we look at those locations. I don't know a single person who's been or is planning to go or ever wants to. And I'm like, how did this location make it? So
because they're written by content writers that haven't been to any of these
like
places.
they're not digital nomads. They're just like writing trends that they don't do. So so I think it's really important if you're listening to this podcast, hopefully it's because you want like the real scoop from real nomads. And Diego, as he said, has a community of, he says there's 630 active members. I feel like there's more even in our sort of like extended bubble of that network. But Diego definitely has like real ears and eyes on the ground, and within, you know, like actually surveying the members of where do they want to go, where are they planning to go, like all of these things. So it's the real data, and again, maybe slightly skewed for Wi-Fi tribe people, but it's going to be more real than anything you just read on the internet.
For a quick 30 seconds on this, the first thing you'll find if you search digital nomad locations for 2025,
You searched.
I did, yeah. And of course, probably to nobody's surprise, it's Forbes. And Forbes is well known for having really bad content, horrible UX, and in an SEO standpoint, like for some reason, the whole community is baffled by Forbes. It's this crazy enigma where they specialize in nothing but rank for everything. And we feel like there's some secret handshake deals going on between Google and Forbes. Nobody can quite work it out.
That's
They've been accused of domain hijacking. So they actually created a separate subdivision of Forbes that writes all this content, and they're just benefiting from the Forbes name. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but it's very, very odd. And whenever you read from Forbes,
Jeff's
you're
going
like,
down conspiracy theory holes.
SEO conspiracy theories. They're the best kind.
Right. Forbes says the top digital nomad locations for 2025. There's 5. Okay. St. Lucia.
I have never heard of that.
Sure.
Beautiful,
Well, you
expensive.
should.
You won't find digital nomads.
No one in our community has ever talked about St. Lucia.
Everyone I know goes on their honeymoon there for like a week and then from the US.
Lisbon, 5 years ago. Yeah. Barcelona, I think, is probably in a downward trend.
Well, it's kicking all the tourists out. So,
Greece, they're literally spraying them with squirt guns while they're sitting at restaurants. I've seen videos of this saying "Go home, tourists." It's pretty odd for Spanish people to accuse people of colonizing them. Anyways, don't go down that one. And then we got Greece, maybe, and then Panama, maybe a little
Panama.
resurgence.
Although I have seen a little resurgence of Bocas del Toro, but maybe that's also just within Wi-Fi
We
tribe.
anticipated that too, Marissa. Remember, there's going to be
when the Wi-Fi comes, there's going to be a Bocas return.
The Bocasance is upon
The
us.
Bocasance. I love that.
I've never heard that term. It's so good.
I just made it up.
Maybe like 38% accurate. I would say.
No,
I don't know where I got that number, but that's what I've decided.
Diego, it's time for you to set us
Take us away, Diego. Let us stop talking.
Let's
do. You know what? I want to throw one more little stat out there because I've just been crunching numbers the other day and it's fascinating. This might give everybody listening a strong, compelling reason to go, all right, these guys know what they're talking about and they're going to give me the kind of information that's super, super valuable. So we have done 255 trips with Wi-Fi Tribe in the last 9 years that we've been active. That is 1,036 weeks of time spent co-living and co-working, living in all of these different countries, which amounts to 20 years worth of co-living around the world in countries together, right? Like that is an insane amount of time. And yes, everything that we do, at least for these trips, relies on us being able to predict where people want to go. So it's at the very core of our I guess, capabilities as a company to stay alive, to be able to get this piece right? And it's been one of the things that actually has been very hard for us. We've always been asking ourselves, how can we get better at predicting where people want to end up? Because nomads are so unbelievably fickle. We change our minds like that. We bounce from one place to the next. We're super spontaneous. So you really have to anticipate where demand is going, right? So with that said, hopefully we've made a case for why you should listen to us and not to Forbes. But if you feel like Forbes, go for it. all you. And I'd
No,
like
don't. No,
to
don't.
start us off with the first trend. Let's have a look at Africa. So in general, Africa has been a bit of a trend in the nomad space. I would say probably now for the last 3 years. It's certainly been on the rise, and last year was already stronger than it had been before. And I do believe that 2025 is going to be even stronger. You have the first organizations and communities that are starting to specialize in Africa. So I think some people that have also organized companies out there that are just doing African destinations. So that's quite interesting to see that there's now enough interest in that space for companies to exist there. But generally also more and more destinations are being, I would say, I guess, explored from a, remote work and living there kind of perspective. As for specific destinations, South Africa, I think, is not even worth mentioning here because it's not, up and coming trending. It is already, it's squarely in there. It's one of the most popular destinations for nomads. But interesting ones are our number one that made our Q4 survey. I'm actually not going to tell you, Jeff, Marissa, I want you to guess because I don't think you will.
The number one
In Africa.
location?
Egypt.
Good guess, though.
I was going to guess like Rwanda
Namibia.
or Uganda.
Interesting. Rwanda, Uganda, Egypt, they're all ones that are definitely starting to pick up a little and become a bit more trending.
We're wrong. Then.
Tanzania.
I was going to say it
Zanzibar.
next. You got Zanzibar.
Really?
Yes. Okay, that was going to be my next guess.
And it's a really interesting one. I think it's more of a desired location. It's somewhere where people really, really want to go. I think more and more people have traveled there, not necessarily with remote work. It's a bit challenging because the internet isn't squarely there yet, but
Yeah.
the satellite system is going to be there really soon. So hopefully that'll be sorted pretty soon.
That makes sense. I feel like for some reason of all of Africa, Zanzibar has this little, I don't know, it just feels like in people's minds, like I think all of Africa is incredible to explore, but I feel like that particular island has this safe little bubble of like, it's been popular travel-wise for a
Yeah.
lot of years. And it feels like a honeymoon remote destination. So the draw to go, and it's beachy and, the like almost like you'd see in the Caribbean. So it makes sense that people would, and I just feel like it has that safety ease factor in people's minds. So it makes sense that once Wi-Fi gets there, it will blow up in that way.
Yeah, that was, but I have,
Wasn't on my bingo card.
and bear in mind, guys, this wasn't the top African destination in our survey. This was the top number one destination in our survey across all destinations for Q4.
Wow.
Wow.
So I was
That's
now
wild.
we know that we're really, really going to try to make Zanzibar happen at the end of the year. So I'm excited for that.
Uh-huh.
The other ones, and this one I know is just super exciting for our community in general, but I would say Namibia, Swakopmund in particular, it has been
The weirdest destination.
super strange. I mean,
I have thoughts about
super
that.
strange, but people have loved it.
I love the country as a whole. That little town is so strange to me, but I know all the Wi-Fi tribe people like loved being in that, like living for the month in that little town. So
Isn't
power
it
to
fairly
it.
difficult? I thought the infrastructure was a little bit prohibitive there, from what I've heard from people.
In
It
in
depends.
Swakopmund, it was pretty okay. It's a very small town.
It's like a little German town in
Yeah.
the middle of this African country. It's
It
so
makes no
weird.
sense. It's like it shouldn't be there. And there's this weird fog that's there a lot of the time. I think actually it depends on the season. When we're there, it hopefully shouldn't be as much. And it's right by a desert, sand dune desert that you're kind of driving your ATVs to. So it's just this really surreal place. But yeah,
Is that the place where the fog meets the ocean
Yeah.
coming from inland?
It's the
that
only
creates
place where
crazy
like the sand
pictures?
dunes meet the ocean, and then there's
Mhm.
just so many. It is, I will say, a really amazing central spot to get to it. Like not all of the touristy things in Namibia, but like to get to like 80% of the hot spots. I feel like you can kind of do weekend trips easily from that location, which makes it pretty ideal.
I
And
see.
some of them are like 30 minutes, an hour away. They're pretty close.
yeah. And I think that's also one of the big draws of Namibia, right? It is, at least in the destinations that we've done, has been one of the most epic places to travel around.
It's incredible. It's easily one of my top favorite countries and experiences I've had. But I'm curious to know,
Yeah.
my guess is that would over-index as like a Wi-Fi tribe popular destination and not quite with like digital nomads of the world. But I feel like there's adventurous travelers. I'm seeing a little bit more like on Instagram kind of going to Namibia, but
Exactly.
I don't think there's other digital nomads often beyond Wi-Fi tribe where like it's better to go as groups. That's like a good one to have a group of people there with you to do these adventures.
Absolutely. And bear in mind for the session that we're doing today, because we might have another chance of doing popular destinations, this one's trends, and we're looking at the early trends, right? Where we're starting to see some movement and some motion in a certain direction. I would
Yeah.
say what was interesting about Namibia always is that it was one of the first destinations in Africa to really pick up with tourism in general since the pandemic, right? Because there was influencers that went there, they experienced these really cool things, and suddenly everybody wanted to go. And then people who went there working remotely, they started to figure out that it was kind of possible to have good enough infrastructure to be able to work from there as well. And then as communities like ours go there, we start to put places on the map. And if people see it more repeatedly and see it in other communities as well, which has now happened, so now I think of the main communities out there, probably 3 out of 4 had Namibia as a destination. And so that starts to
Interesting.
create, it signals that it's going to be a digital nomad destination for you. So that's a really interesting.
It's really
Hmm.
cool that you guys are movers. Like the locations that you decide to go to, you're influencers, but like real influencers of people physically actually on the ground going to places. Like you guys have put a lot of places on the map after doing chapters there. Because it seems that I feel like the nomad community as a whole is not, it's not gigantic and everyone kind of sees. So when you have 20 people there at once, they're posting all these things and suddenly their network of people will then go and they're posting things
Yeah.
and it just kind of spreads like a spider web. So it's cool. And you guys, you're hearing it first if you're listening of where the destinations are. That's awesome.
Yeah, the network effect is incredibly strong in this space. That, and I would say the other factor that influences it as well is ads, right? We ran ads that reached, I think, 4 million people in Q4. And if 4 million people are kind of, popping onto the website or Instagram and starting to see some of these destinations that we're putting up there, that's further exposure that puts a stamp of approval that this destination is remote work, quote unquote, ready, right? And I think all
Yeah,
of
that
that is
makes a lot
helping
of
it.
sense.
Well, the other one that's interesting there in Africa as well that we're starting to see some interest picking up on is Kenya in general, but Watamu specifically has been one of the bigger
Mhm.
ones there. And then, of course, Mauritius. I feel like Mauritius it's got a
Hmm.
slow upward trajectory. I think it will grow with the general interest in Africa, but it was one of the early ones that we went to back then, and also that we heard a little bit more about in Africa in general. So I'm really excited to see more people exploring it because I think it's an excellent destination for remote work. It's really
It's interesting, like, after you and I were there, Diego, was that 2021 or 20, I think 2022
2020, I
we
think.
were there, I want to say. And I feel like I had a lot of our friends who were like, I'm going to go. That looks amazing. Like, a lot of people went after we went. But it's still a pretty small nomad community, but it does have the infrastructure, the beautiful beaches, and the tourism kind of abilities. So I can see that one starting to go more popular, especially as you guys are doing more and more chapters and promoting it. I feel like more and more people will start going as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited to see where all this goes, but it's an awesome trend. It's really cool to see that Africa is such a big theme now in the nomad space.
It's really exciting because it hasn't been very possible just infrastructure wise. Like it's, you can still travel through it and it's hard actually to travel from country to country, but it's really amazing. I'm excited because I love the continent and there's so many gems and amazing cultures and animals and lands to experience. So I'm excited that it's an option now for nomads who like actually want to work and kind of spend time there.
Yeah, same. I mean, my limited view of Cape Town was like, wow, you just get some unspeakable vibe about Africa. And for me, I was just like, it wasn't enough time. There's so much
Yeah,
more I need to see. The landscape it felt very foreign to me. Just seeing those enormous animals up close, just the crazy geography and the sunsets. It did feel like a fairy tale wildlife
yeah.
place, and I could see the appeal. I definitely want to see more. So it's cool to hear that that's on the list.
And it's been pretty I feel like from a US perspective at least, I feel like the people who go there it's like only the people who go to Africa. And I'm always very conscious when I say that because I am talking about the continent as a whole. But any of
Hmm.
the countries there, whether it's Rwanda, Kenya, Botswana, Tanzania, any of these, a lot of people from the US are paying like 20 to 30K to go on safari there. And that was like the only way that people in their minds, I think, thought that you could
Yeah.
travel to some of these places in Africa. And I try to tell people, like, no, I was just on the ground and we just drove ourselves and you could pay
Yeah.
$100 to enter the park. But
Well,
people
you
still,
probably shouldn't have, to be quite.
to be fair, this is
You
probably
got into
true.
some dicey
You can do it a little
That
more
comes with a big
expensively.
disclaimer, everybody. All right?
Yes. So
You don't have to go 20 grand, but you also don't have to be your own fucking tour guide in
This is
You
true.
can find a middle ground.
Namibia driving through Russian creeks.
there's a
and-
middle ground
no.
somewhere there because it still could
Right,
be a couple
right.
grand to go on some of these safaris and do them
Sure.
in the way that's popular. But when you're there on the ground, you can find some local ways and like ask around. There are less like I just want to say you don't have to pay 30 grand to go to Africa and go on safari. Like you can do it on a day trip just while you're there. So I'm excited that this is giving just more access to nomads to see that it's not so expensive. It is more expensive than a lot of places, but that it's doable, livable, and you can explore this continent and like so many amazing countries there in a way that I think a lot of people don't think is possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and as we talk about all these things, I think you were kind of alluding to it there too, Marissa, that, we have to bear in mind, we say, oh, it's about exploring Africa. And somebody, in South Africa, in Kenya, and Mauritius is like, guys, this is where I live and this is my country. Maybe looking at it from their perspective and saying, it's like, oh, how cool would it be to explore America, right? It's always important to keep that thing in perspective, that what we're talking about here when we get excited about exploring, again, quote unquote, Africa as a continent, is the idea of something that is so distant from what we experience in our countries back at home, right? That's both cultural distance and, geographical distance, the animals that we get to see there, right? So the same excitement, of course, would be there as well in reverse, I'm sure, about being able to, for example, explore Europe or explore the States, right? So I just want to have that sensitivity as we're talking through this. On that note, we are moving over to Northern Europe with the next trend. And this to me is quite interesting because when we did our survey 2 years ago, there was a strong signal that said everybody wants to go to Eastern Europe. And
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
it was really interesting because we thought, okay, cool. Well, that means that we should be putting on a lot of Eastern European destinations. We did, and it didn't quite work for us. Right? It was okay. Like there was some interest in it, but just not as much as we had anticipated and planned for. And so I think that was slightly, A, it was slightly overhyped. And B, I think part of what people realized was that Eastern Europe wasn't quite as cheap as everybody thought it was going to be, because that perception was one that was a little bit outdated. And the prices since then have really started to, I wouldn't say it's quite the same as Central or Northern Europe, but prices have started to get closer and to meet, especially when you're going to the more popular cities in Eastern Europe, right? And so what I've seen instead in the last year is a trend towards Northern Europe. And that's been the case from our community for sure, but I'm also generally seeing that that's picking up to the point where I got a call from a radio show in Ireland asking me to talk about, why digital nomads might be interested in Ireland and how that might be something that's picking
Oh,
up.
cool.
Yeah, it was
In
Ireland. And it's not yet, I would say.
Like the most expensive
Super
place you
pricey.
could.
Yeah.
That is.
But all of
I
Northern
didn't-
Europe
I wouldn't have had
is.
that on my bingo card either. That's
No,
wild.
but I think people really, I think people really love the culture. They love the, the old castles there. There's something quite magical about Ireland. But
Marissa, thought.
it's not your destination.
Even I have been to Ireland, and of all the castles in Europe,
They're the nicest.
there's a lot of nature. There's a lot. I feel like all the castles in Ireland are surrounded by like grass and greenery, so it kind of offsets a little bit of like the old castle creepy vibe that like when you're in Romania or like some of those places that it's just all the cobblestone everything. Czech Republic. So I give Ireland, of all the castles in Europe, I'm all for Ireland if I have to.
Nice.
It is magical though. It's a cool magical country, and the people are so friendly, and it has like I don't know, all the pubs and it's just a beautiful place. I think to get in a car and explore on road trips. It's just like endless beautiful scenery to explore. So I vote a yes for Ireland.
Good vibes all around. Yeah. And then another one that I think has a similar kind of draw is Scotland, but it also, Edinburgh in particular, is also really interesting for people because of the big festival, the Edinburgh Fringe. And that is drawing people in general, I think, in there. I heard about it, 15 years ago when I studied in the UK, but it kind of resurfaced now, at least within our own community. There's always a group of people going there, and people, those destinations, Ireland, Edinburgh, people are willing to also pay a lot of money for, because, everybody's aware of the fact that they are expensive destinations, but people really want to see them.
When you said Northern Europe, I thought you were going to say more of the like Sweden, Finland, Norway sort of vibes. Does that make the cut at all?
It does.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
That was the next on my list. Scandinavia, Specifically, Sweden and Norway are the ones that are currently really picking up and trending. And I would say that's both within our community and outside as well. Again, not cheap for sure, but in my opinion, one of the things we've seen is that prices around the world have been increasing in general in accommodation, certainly in Europe, to the point where Norway felt so inaccessible, and now it feels like it's not actually that far away from a lot of the rest of Europe anymore. Still expensive, but not as crazy inaccessible as it used to feel, right?
Cool.
Did their prices come down, or has it stayed the same while everything else rose?
I think it either stayed the same or didn't rise as much as everything else. The speed at which, especially popular cities around Europe have increased is, it's just really fast. I think it's because of remote work might be a part of it, but just generally, we all know how prices have been rising, right? So that's definitely a thing. Yeah, let me take you on to
what's next.
Next trend is less of a destination, more about a vibe. And I would say this is about nature.
Love this. Love it.
Boy.
So we've seen...
Give us the vibes, Diego.
Yeah, we've seen more people being interested in more outdoorsy nature type of destinations. I don't know why this is happening right now. Yeah, I couldn't really point to the trend.
I have two thoughts.
Yeah,
Can I give you my
please.
two guesses? One is Wi-Fi. It's just like a lot of times you had to be in the city centers in a lot of different countries just to have enough infrastructure to work remotely and have strong enough Wi-Fi to work. So now with Wi-Fi that's expanding and satellites and all this stuff, I feel like people who wanted to be in nature anyway now can. So maybe that's part of it. And then the second part is I feel like, I don't know, there's something going on in the world. I feel like when everyone got locked inside during COVID and now just, I don't know, I feel like so many people, even just non-nomads, are fleeing cities more. I feel like people are overwhelmed by screens and technology and traffic and just like the energy of cities and are craving more. I feel like there's just a trend back to health and nature, like people remembering that nature is healthy, grounding is healthy, being in the trees and the forest is proven to help you heal, being in the ocean helps you heal. So I wonder if we've just become so technology city focused and people are unwell and now seeking nature for health purposes. I don't know. That's my other guess.
That's a fascinating thing that you're saying, and that's what I would have said intuitively for myself, but I wouldn't have.
I know. I was like, maybe this is just a me thing. I don't know. It's possible.
But you know what makes a lot of sense around that is sometimes when these things are things that A, you feel, and B, you start to see people talk about. We're seeing so many people talk about this kind of stuff, for example, on social media. And when one expert talks about it, 5 experts talk about it, 100 talk about it, and then suddenly every influencer is regurgitating that same information. And suddenly you have this wave of like, you have to be out in nature. So I think that these trends really can be shaped by something that is as, quote unquote, simple as suddenly there's a health trend around it. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about that. Yeah, well, the destinations are, at least the ones that topped our list were Italy. So Dolomite Mountains, for example. So we're really talking about the Alps here. And also the Swiss Alps. And then Austria, and there's the city of Vienna, but it's also very sort of green around, but also other areas in Austria that could be really interesting for that as well. But in general, across the board, we've seen more interest for our destinations that are a little bit more remote, a little bit more out there, out in nature. So that is just a further, just a further bit of proof that this is a trend that people are looking for now.
I love those. Anytime you guys put out those really naturey type of places, I'm always like, I want to be there. I want to go. Like, I want to live there. And especially when you have these co-living, again, if you're not quite sure what Wi-Fi Tribe is, I know Diego explained it some, but it's you have a group of people that you, from start to finish, from the beginning of a month to end of a month, you have a built-in network of people. So if you're solo traveling and you go to these places in nature, it's kind of hard to meet people. You have to be fine kind of spending time alone or saying hi to locals on the street, but you don't really have that nomad community. Whereas for you guys, I wonder if with Wi-Fi Tribe, it's even more so indexed, like you were kind of saying before, because you have a group of people to experience that nature with.
Yeah. But you do also see more co-lives popping up, as in more, mom and pop shop individual co-lives. Exactly.
Right.
Popping up in
infrastructure for everybody wanting it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And that's
awesome.
Just proves that there's demand, right? Because those would pop up and then disappear again if there wasn't enough demand.
If nobody was.
But they're staying.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm selfishly very happy because I want the nature places.
More of those.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, let's move it on to the next trend, which I would say is adventure and adventurous destinations. And I don't want this to just be a buzzword because, of course, we're all thinking about travel, we're all thinking about adventure. So it's very easy to say, oh, adventurous destinations. But I want to caveat that by saying that I don't actually think that digital nomads have been as adventurous across the 10 years that we've been doing this, right? And I think that there was an early wave of adventurous digital nomads, but they were still flocking to a very few destinations that were, easy to work remotely from. Then there were many years of people kind of just going wherever was standard and consolidating in those. And now I feel like for the first time over the last sort of 2 years, there seems to be a much stronger push to go a lot further out there. And I don't know who's leading that in terms of the individual person, because there's people that are seeking this out, right? I wonder whether it's the same kind of people that were there 10 years ago. The new version of that person is someone who's like, well, I really want to go off the beaten path, or how do I still find something that makes me feel something really strong, or what's something that feels like a challenge to me where I'm not just going where everybody else is going, right? So I think there's a certain trend there that's starting to come up as well. And
what are some examples of those types of locations?
So at least in terms of what we saw in our data, in our survey, Oman, Muscat has been popping up a little bit more as well.
Yay.
In Kazakhstan, Almaty, that was a very interesting one to see people looking at. Bhutan, Nepal, Senegal, and Dakar and Senegal. And then I would also add Seoul and South Korea to that list. And the reason I would say that one's quite adventurous for, again, somebody coming, from the US or from Europe, from Western countries, is that
it's
culture is
culturally
so different.
so different.
Yeah, to get around is much harder even than in Japan. So, and I know that also from our group of people when they go there, they're challenged, right? So yeah, it's just so nice to see that element. I do believe that our community skews slightly more towards more adventurous for sure. So take all of this with a grain of salt. But I'm also seeing more digital nomads sort of generally kind of looking at where they can push the boundaries and which places they could work from. Right.
I love it. That's awesome.
So
any other trends, or is
I got one last
that it?
one last one for you, and that's
Oh,
really
yay.
just kind of giving a little shout out to the lesser known gems. We always love those. I think they always need some extra love. I would say
These are up and coming for 2025 specifically.
Yeah,
some gems or just the usual gem.
No, I would say gems that I believe are going to be up and coming for 2025. Yeah. So I'd put Honduras on there, Roatan specifically. People are looking at that one. We talked about it in the beginning, but I would put Bocas del Toro and Panama on there. I really think that one's going to finally make its comeback. Very well deserved as well. It certainly is in our community.
The Bocas
is happening.
Roatan is amazing as well. I went there 10 years ago, and I feel like there's more. I'm surprised. I know there's a lot of danger in Honduras in general, but the island has like a different little feel I think it makes sense that it's more popular with nomads upcoming.
Yeah.
We had a guest on, actually. She ran a digital marketing agency and started a work from anywhere company in Honduras.
Oh, cool.
Just moved there and it was like, that's it. I love this place, and started hiring people, work from anywhere from Honduras. Moved there permanently, not a digital nomad, but just sucked her in.
That's amazing.
I love it. What else is on that list?
Yeah, I think the only other one that I have here for us now, at least from our own list, is, well, two more actually. Let's see, Philippines and Taiwan might be making that list as well. So those are also interesting destinations. But I do want to, just throw it over to you guys if there's any other destinations that you can think of that you would add to this list just from what you've heard. I'm curious to know.
The ones
mine just comes from such a biased small group perspective.
Which is where for you?
Which is just, okay. For example, this year, the two big polls right now that I'm seeing are back to Puerto Escondido. Seems like half my friends are going there and half are going to Cape Town. And neither one of these are new or particularly up and coming or exciting. They're just the flavor of the season, I guess. But also, one of the things that actually clicked with me is I had a group of friends go do all of the stands. You mentioned Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
They had a nomad festival there, not digital nomad festival, nomads, actual nomads, and where they displayed all their skills. Like horse riding while doing archery and things like that. Apparently it's like an incredible thing to see. But yeah, I am seeing some of my friends just anecdotally tackling more adventurous and more challenging types of locations, like you mentioned. I don't think any new digital nomads, a little bit more seasoned ones that are able to work it out. But those definitely resonate with me.
Yeah, I would echo the stands. I feel like those are newly being explored in ways that they weren't before. Philippines makes sense. I feel like Nomad Cruise just brought a group of people over there not long ago. And that I was there 2018, I think, and the Wi-Fi was horrendously hard. So I feel like Philippines are amazing. I mean, there's so many beautiful islands to explore. It's an awesome country, but hard with Wi-Fi. So that makes sense that it's kind of resurging. And then I would say Sri Lanka. I feel like I've seen I feel like on my Instagram feed of Nomad friends, it's like just even people I haven't talked to in a while, like everyone's popping up in Sri Lanka. I know you just spent some time there, Diego, and I feel like it's amazing. I feel like people are discovering it's like Bali. If you're kind of overrun with the nomads in Bali, Sri Lanka is sort of like a really awesome alternative. I wouldn't even say alternative. It's an awesome place, but it's kind of a next real up and coming. I feel like it's actually happening now.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're working in actually even U.S. time zones, at least Eastern time, the time zone is amazing there because you kind of get to access Asia, but still have a decent time zone. So that really made a difference for us compared to Bali. Good spot.
So that's a good one. And Diego, if people are interested, if they're hearing about Wi-Fi Tribe, maybe if they have their remote jobs and they want to join these adventurous locations, where can people go to find more info about joining Wi-Fi Tribe?
Thanks for asking. So just wifitribe.co, and you'll find the big apply button on the top right-hand corner. But yeah, just have a look at it. Obviously, I'd say follow us on wifitribe.co on Instagram. And that's where you're just going to be able to see everything that we're doing, what we get up to, and all the insider details. I've been told I have to do more Instagram videos, so you might see my face on there every now and then. I am strongly resisting, but eventually.
We love it. We love it so much.
I'm an advocate. You should.
More Diego.
More Diego. Just give me a long feed of Diego content.
Love you guys, but this is
you gotta subscribe.
This is going to be I think this is going to be the end of me. We'll see.
And then he was done, but that's awesome. Yeah, definitely follow them on Instagram because you'll get all the travel FOMO. It's like I want to go there, I want to go there. Everything looks amazing, and it is amazing, especially with the community that you guys have. So yeah, write us in if you have any questions about any locations or anything you think we missed, and anything else from you guys.
Thanks for having me back on, guys. I missed this. It's been great to chat.
We missed you.
Yeah, we
come back soon. With that,
you've got more to share, so we're gonna try to schedule something as soon as we can coordinate time zones. So yeah, these are really fun conversations, especially with a little bit of insider knowledge to back it up. So hopefully everybody got something out of this. Maybe got some inspiration in some of these up and coming places. Recommend you just do some Google image searches. I do that anytime Marissa recommends a place, and usually it is pretty badass looking. So yeah, have a look at those spots. And thanks for joining us, and we will see you again next week.